Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking at the Great Syrian Revolt, 1925 to 1927, a really major uprising against French colonial rule.
Yeah, big one.
And our mission really is to understand what kicked it off, what factors led to this massive resistance, and, what happened right after. We're using historical analysis to guide us here.
Right. And you really have to start with the background, the post-World War I situation.
Okay.
The Ottoman Empire was gone, basically dismantled. And France and Britain had this, well, it was a secret deal initially, Sykes-Picot.
Yes.
That essentially carved up the Middle East. France got the mandate for Syria and Lebanon.
Which wasn't what many Arabs were expecting, was it? They hoped for independence.
Exactly. A huge disappointment. Then you had the San Remo Conference and the League of Nations sort of formalizing French control. So independence was off the table.
So how did the French actually manage this control on the ground?
Well, one key strategy was this Balkanization idea, basically breaking up Greater Syria.
And in smaller pieces.
Yeah. States like Damascus, Aleppo, Greater Lebanon, the Alawite territory, Jabal al-Druz. The goal was pretty clear. We weaken any potential unified nationalism. Divide and conquer.
Make sense from their perspective, I suppose.
And it wasn't just borders. They really took over the administration directly.
So local leaders pushed out.
Yeah, sidelined. Traditional power structures just disrupted, even in rural areas, messing with how things had worked for ages, trying to control nomadic groups. It caused a lot of friction.
I can imagine. And what about the economics of it? Was that a factor?
Oh, huge.
Yeah.
French economic policies were all about resource extraction, benefiting France naturally.
And for Syrians?
Heavy taxes. But crucially, that money wasn't really reinvested back into Syria. Not in infrastructure, not in services.
So extraction without much return?
Pretty much. And things like disruptive land reforms, particularly in Jabal al-Druz under Captain Carbillet. Things like forced labor, changing land ownership rules. It really hit the Druze community hard.
Right. Jabal al-Druz, that specific local anger seems key.
It really was. And the final spark that really set things off was when the French High Commissioner Sorel arrested and deported some Druze leaders. That was July 1925.
Okay, so that's the immediate trigger.
That's the spark. But what's fascinating is how quickly it became more than just a local Druze issue. It tapped into this broader Syrian nationalism.
A desire for unity, independence.
Exactly. People wanted self-determination to push back against the French fragmentation. And you saw this incredible coalition forming. Sunnis, Alawites, Christians, others.
Wasn't there that slogan from Sultan Pasha, al-Atrash?
Yeah, religion is for God, the homeland is for all. Really captured that spirit of unity against the French.
And you also mentioned the French sidelined the old elites.
Right. The traditional Syrian elites, people with power. Under the Ottomans, they lost status, lost influence. The French sometimes try to cultivate loyalty among, certain rural leaders, but mostly the old guard was pushed aside.
More fuel for the fire, then.
Absolutely. And initially, the rebels had some surprising successes, didn't they?
Yeah, Sultan Pasha al-Atrash's forces, battles like al-Kafra and especially al-Masra in August 25, big victories against French columns.
Huge, psychologically massive. You show the French weren't invincible. It really boosted rebel morale.
And then it spread.
Like wildfire.
Yeah.
Reached to Damascus, Homs, Hama. You had leaders like Hasan al-Kharrat in Damascus, Fawzi al-Qawuqji in Hama, leading army mutinies.
Wow, even army units joining in?
Yeah, existing networks. Political groups like the People's Party, commercial ties, they all help mobilize people quickly.
And who were the rebels, generally?
A real mix. Urban workers, peasants, guys with Ottoman army experience, nomadic tribes, people from all religious groups.
That's widespread support.
Definitely a strength. But coordinating that kind of diverse group, probably a challenge too.
Now, the French response, it was harsh, wasn't it?
Brutal is the word, especially under General Sorel. The bombardment of Damascus in October 1925 is infamous.
Just shelling the city.
Indiscriminately. Artillery, aircraft, hitting civilian areas, historic places like the street called Straight, huge casualties, lots of destruction. They'd already been using things like public hangings and burning villages.
God, that's grim.
And the repression didn't stop there. They brought in colonial troops, Senegalese, Malagasy used air power, mobile columns. It went on through 26 and 27.
Did anything change politically on the French side?
Well, Sorel was eventually replaced by a civilian, Henri de Juvenel. He sounded a bit more conciliatory, cancel a fine on Damascus, introduce some limited political reforms. But the basic aim, keeping French control, that didn't really change.
So the human cost must have been enormous.
Devastating. Thousands of Syrians killed, Rebels and civilians, massive destruction.
And how did the world react? Did anyone notice?
Oh, definitely. There was international condemnation, especially after the Damascus bombing. The press picked it up. The Syrian and Lebanese diaspora lobbied the League of Nations.
Did the League do anything?
Not really. Lots of talk, but ultimately disappointing for the Syrians. No real action against France.
What about neighboring countries?
Britain was watching closely, maybe a bit worried. Transjordania became a refuge for some rebel leaders. Egypt was important for exiled nationalists and media. Iraq showed sympathy, sent some aid.
So militarily, the revolt was eventually put down, but what's the legacy?
That's the key point. Despite the military defeat, it's often seen as a moral victory. It massively strengthened Syrian nationalism. It really was a turning point, laying the groundwork for the later push for independence after World War II. It's huge in Syrian memory.
A defining moment.
Absolutely. And it really makes you think, doesn't it? This whole struggle against colonial power, this fight for national identity, how does that resonate with other movements throughout history? And how does it continue to shape how we understand self-determination, even today? Something for you, the listener, to consider.